According to unofficial fight night weights, Terence Crawford in his last fight was as heavy as Jaime Munguia in some of his 154-pound fights. He was as heavy as Gennady Golovkin in his prime, right around the time he fought Willie Monroe. He was as big as Jermall Charlo and Erislandy Lara in their primes. He was heavier than Andy Lee when he fought Matt Korobov. He was 14 pounds heavier than Timothy Bradley in his prime. Matter of fact, he weighed as much as Timothy Bradley at welterweight when Terence Crawford fought at lightweight. Terence Crawford was 20 pounds bigger in his last fight than Pacquiao was at the time Terence asked for $8 million to fight the GOAT. He was 2 and 5 pounds smaller respectively than Matvei Korobov and Jose Uzcategui when those two fought at middleweight. He was a couple of pounds smaller and a couple of pounds bigger respectively than Matthew Macklin and Lamar Russ when those two fought at, again, middleweight. He was 2 pounds bigger and 5 pounds bigger respectively than Kirkland and Tapia when they fought, again, at middleweight. He was 4 pounds bigger than Andrade in his prime. He was only 10 pounds smaller than Sergey Kovalev in many of his fights in his prime. And he was the same size and 5 pounds smaller, respectively, than Quillin when he fought Rosado. In his last fight, Terence Crawford rehydrated almost exactly the same amount he used to rehydrate at 135 pounds. He was the same size as Golovkin and Macklin when they fought each other. He was 6 pounds bigger than Erislandy Lara when Lara fought Angulo. He was only 6 pounds smaller than Andre Ward when he fought Dawson. He was 2 pounds bigger than Golovkin and 4 pounds bigger than Proxa when those two fought. He was 3 to 5 pounds bigger than Canelo Alvarez when Canelo fought at 155 pounds. But there's no way! There's absolutely no way Terence Crawford, who has higher bone density, likely higher muscle density, and definitely the bigger frame, there's no way tiny little Terence could be bigger than Canelo when the two of them fight. No way. Cope harder, you losers. So in response to a lot of people now starting to question this tiny Terence tale, Boxing Jams posted this. What is he trying to say with this? Is he implying that Canelo is Mike Tyson's size or something? Jermall Charlo, as his fight night weights at 154 pounds and his much bigger frame than Canelo suggest, because science, bitch, is bigger than Canelo. But Canelo's supposed to be Mike Tyson? I don't get it. You guys tell me. I guess I must be failing the IQ test. Mike Tyson, who is 3 inches taller than Canelo and anywhere between 50 to 70 pounds heavier, is he saying that he's Canelo size? What is he saying? I don't know. You guys let me know. So let me get this straight. Terence Crawford, who when he's fighting 1 pound below Canelo weight and weighs in unofficially anywhere between 3 to 5 pounds heavier than Canelo at Canelo weight, is the taller guy with longer arms and higher bone density and probably higher muscle density. He's somehow the smaller man? And you know this because Canelo is thicker in the chest? He's got the thicker neck and the bigger head? Is that what you see in this photo? A thicker chested Canelo? Is that what you see in this photo? The white guy with the bigger neck and the bigger head? Well, grab a ruler, motherfucker, and measure because you're dead wrong. From this angle, Terence Crawford's head is about as tall as Canelo's head, but it's wider. From this angle, Terence Crawford's neck is just a touch wider than Canelo's neck at some points and about the same at other points. But I don't care what fucking angle you look at it, Terence Crawford has the much longer neck. The reason why Canelo's neck looks thick and his head looks thick is because it's a very short neck and he's a very short guy, short stocky guy. The reason why Canelo's head and neck may appear bigger to you is because he is a light-skinned man next to a dark guy. And we all know black is slimming, right? So stop rejecting science, like the data that's on record, and pick up a fucking ruler, if you need to. I don't. Who's the thicker guy, retards? Pick up a ruler and you'll find that from the shoulder blades to where the pecs end, Terence Crawford is at least a couple of inches thicker than Canelo. But I get it, this is only one angle, and what about from the front? Who is wider at the shoulders, right? Well, probably Terence Crawford. Look at them. Pick up a ruler, bro. Seriously. Ah, fuck it. Let me do it for you, as funny as this may look to you. Yep, Crawford. Even in that no doubt expensive starched quintal saco with shoulder pads in it, while sitting straight up, shoulders back, Canelo Alvarez isn't as wide at the shoulders as Terence Crawford, who's slouching over. Just wait for the weigh-in. You're gonna be surprised. But even when you look at them from this angle, where Terence Crawford looks about 10 pounds heavier than Canelo, all things considered, just from this angle, calm down. Canelo's shoulder seems to sit a touch higher than Terence Crawford's, and their knuckles are at about the same height, with Crawford having a little bit more bend in the arm and definitely longer fingers. So maybe that's where the almost 2 inches per arm of reach advantage lie with Crawford. Mostly in the hand and the fingers, yeah? So if Crawford's reach advantage could probably be accounted for just in the arms, wouldn't it be fair to assume they're at least just as wide at the shoulders? To me, it looks like Crawford has bigger delts, but, that's just muscle mass on a bigger frame. Or am I to seriously consider this pseudoscientific bullshit that a guy who weighs in heavier at a similar weight class, pound lower than Canelo, weighs in heavier unofficially in that ring on fight night, is maybe 2 inches taller and has maybe 4 inches of wingspan advantage, is clearly thicker in the chest, has a thicker neck, bigger head, his forearms are just as thick, again on much longer arms. Am I to seriously consider this bullshit that that's the guy with the smaller frame? To think that I have to sit here and suffer these idiot savants like boxing jams trying to pull the wool over his own fucking blind eyes, claiming that Canelo has the bigger frame and the bigger bone structure. I have an idea, guys. How about we try to use our eyes and intellect, and I know this might be difficult, but also honesty. Who's got the bigger bone structure? By far. Who? But this should come as no surprise to anybody who knows anything about human physiology, especially when it comes to different races. Black men on average have much denser and bigger bones than white men. So even if they're the same height and maybe just as wide at the shoulders, which isn't the case here because Crawford is clearly the bigger man, even when their frames are comparable in size or the same, on average, a black guy will have a denser, heavier frame, meaning he's able to carry more muscle on that frame. That's why someone like Crawford, who's again taller and rangier than Canelo, wider at the shoulders most likely, weighs in heavier at about the same weight class. That's why he looks thicker in the chest. His head and neck both look bigger. People have just been brainwashed to accept Terence Crawford as some kind of a tiny, underprivileged guy. This is just victim mentality. And we all know that calling a black guy a weight bully is, well, basically racist. But clearly, Terence Crawford has the bigger frame. He's naturally the significantly bigger man. The only question remains is whether or not he will actually use those natural gifts to put on more muscle than Canelo. Personally, I don't think he needs to. I think he's plenty big as he is right there, but I guess maybe we'll see. But yeah, clearly Crawford is the naturally bigger man with a significantly bigger frame, heavier frame. That's why people are experiencing massive cognitive dissonance and coping so hard with this pseudoscientific garbage like Canelo's muscle is denser somehow. That's why they're also claiming that Canelo has denser bones. Just look at him. I thought you would need a DEXA scan or something like that to be able to ascertain that, but let's not get too scientific when it comes to how people feel. These clowns are completely illogical. They're employing circular reasoning, right? Their premise is the conclusion. How in the world would they know if Canelo has dense muscles or bones without a DEXA scan? By looking at him? That's why their premise and their conclusion is one and the same. Canelo is heavy. He has dense muscle. He has dense bone. How do we know that? Because he's heavy. He has dense muscle and dense bones. How do we know that? Because he's heavy. He has so on and so forth. This is the so-called logic. Again, science tells us that black men have denser bones than white men on average. And the difference, I did the math, between these two guys could be as high as 10 pounds. Now, I don't think it's that much, but this idea that Canelo has denser bones than Crawford is completely pseudoscientific. You just made that up because it made you feel good. It makes you sound so educated and intelligent, if only in your own fucking head. So Crawford more than likely has the denser bones, and from all the evidence that we see, their actual bone structure, at least some of his bones are significantly bigger than Canelo's bones. Not just denser, but bigger. And there is no evidence that Canelo has any bones in his body bigger than Crawford's. So who has the bigger, denser frame, geniuses? Now, when it comes to muscle density, that's when it gets a little bit interesting. Again, we don't have a DEXA scan for either one of these guys. But everybody always bloviates about how incredibly strong Terence Crawford is for his size. And that's a telltale sign of muscle density, high muscle density. strength. You know what else is? Speed and quickness. Now, when it comes to their hands and upper body, I'll give a slight edge to Canelo. I think his hands are quicker. But not when it comes to the biggest muscles in your body, your legs. Crawford is far quicker when it comes to that. And the difference between their upper body quickness isn't nearly as big as the difference when it comes to the lower body quickness, with again, that being the biggest muscle group in your body. So when it comes to overall muscle density, it's actually likely that it's the guy that deadlifts, I don't know how many thousands of pounds, you guys tell me, than this more fluffy, round, muscle-bellied, pretty-looking muscle Canelo. Terence Crawford is taller, with longer arms, probably denser, heavier bones. His head from this angle looks a little bit bigger than Canelo's head, and his neck is definitely bigger than Canelo. Even if it doesn't look as thick from all angles, it's not far behind, and sometimes it does look bigger, but it's twice as fucking tall. The forearms look the same size, only that they're longer. The hands, the feet are much bigger. He weighs in heavier when in a similar situation. The only edge, maybe two, I'll give to Canelo when it comes to size is clearly he's got the more robust, bigger jaw. And it shows on fight night. He takes a far better punch than Terence Crawford. And I would assume, we don't know, we have to see the weigh-in, that he is thicker in the midsection, which means he has larger organs and probably more visceral fat, seeing as he likes to indulge in alcohol and PEDs. Whoop-de-fucking-do. That's why when it comes to self-reported walk-around weight right before entering camp, Terence Crawford has consistently been 5 to 6 pounds bigger than Canelo. 186 or so, Canelo about 180. And given the fact that, again, Terence Crawford has the bigger, more robust frame, when he weighed in at 170 pounds going into the Madrimo fight, and I believe that that was the unofficial ceremonial weigh-in, right? Why would they have these guys step on the scale at two different times when they could just kill two birds with one stone, right? So again, I think the ceremonial weigh-in is the unofficial weight. And if that's Terence Crawford at 170 pounds and he still has maybe 24 hours to hydrate before he steps into that ring, and he still looks a little bit drawn in the ceremonial weigh-in, it's likely that on fight night against Madrimov, he was 175, 178 pounds even. If Devin Haney with Snack can rehydrate 25 pounds at 135 pounds, then why couldn't Terence Crawford rehydrate 25, 27 pounds at 154? And Canelo, for his part, who, whether he is weighing in at a ceremonial or official weigh-in at 175 pounds, looks basically the same. That guy, it's fair to assume, probably fights at right around 175 pounds. And all of his known fight night weights corroborate this. So it's actually very likely that Crawford in his last fight was even 5 pounds bigger than Canelo in his. And now that Terence Crawford, I'm hearing, is bulking up for this one and Canelo is slimming down a little bit, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if Terence Crawford actually had a weight advantage on Canelo on fight night. And even if Canelo is, let's say, 5 pounds bigger than Terence Crawford unofficially, if you account for body fat, which AI tells me when it comes to Canelo it's 2 to 3% more, well, that's the 5 pound difference right there. Even if Canelo weighs in heavier on fight night by about 5 pounds, it's still completely and absolutely retarded and quite frankly dishonest to state that in boxing, where height and reach is probably the most important size advantage a guy could have, with a guy that's given up maybe even up to 5 pounds but has 4 almost inches of reach and 2 inches of height, to say that that guy is the smaller guy, you've lost your fucking mind, man.